Good afternoon, everybody. I am Kim Coble. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and it's awesome to have you join us for our last official Friday Digest during the legislative session of 2024. If I sound excited about the end of the session, it's because I am. We've had a busy session, and I think every bill that we're working on is still in play. So it's going to be a rapid fire week and a half before we're done here as well. But it's great to have you here, and we'll give you updates on our priority bills. I am very honored to be joined by our policy team, Kristen Harbison, our political director, Rebecca Rear, our Director of Climate Policy and Justice, and Arissa Olcheski, who runs our Environmental Protection Program. So with those three, we are going to do a rapid fire on top priority bills and status. And then I'm going to have all my colleagues join, and we're going to have a brief conversation about 2025, hopefully leaving a few minutes at the end for questions. Please put your name and where you're from in the chat. And then also, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat or the question and answers, and we'll get those picked up as well. So lastly, I want to make sure that you are aware that at the end is a survey. These Friday Digests are meant to enable you, empower you, inspire you to take action. So keep us posted on what information you need, what tools you need in order to accomplish that. We can't pass anything without you. So we need you ready, eager, willing, and able to take action. So please let us know. So with that, let me turn to, we're going to have a PowerPoint today to just make it a little bit easier. So we're in the final week. Sine Die is April 8th. Monday goes till midnight, and we will be there all the way up to the end until everything's either passed or we know it's not going to pass. So count us in as partners to keep you posted on things. Go ahead, next slide. There's my policy team, except for Ramon, who was unable to join us today, and they'll be talking about specific bills. So I'll get to them shortly. Let me start with the budget. You might remember we started the session out with the governor making an announcement that he was going to allocate $90 million of existing funds that were in CEF specifically to 3 targeted programs. 17 million to electric school buses, an unprecedented amount of money. 23 million to EV charging at multifamily dwelling units, and then 50 million for building electrification. He also said 50% of the funds will be spent in underserved, overburdened communities. We were very pleased to join him at that announcement and to lobby that stayed intact as that provision went through the budgeting process in the Senate and the House. We wanted to make sure that those specific allocations stayed intact. And I'm very pleased to say they continue to stay intact. So the budget has those in there. Thank you to everybody that took a position on that. And we're hopeful that the final bill passed by the chambers will include those provisions. Next slide, please. This particular bill is still in play. This is HB 990. And just to refresh you, in 2009, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act was passed, and manufacturing writ large, the whole sector, every manufacturer in Maryland was exempted from having to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. A study was conducted, and it was determined that there's opportunities for the manufacturers to actually contribute to the state goals of reducing emissions. So the bill that Delegate Stein put in was to remove that exemption. There's some adjustments to it. So any new manufacturer after 2023 needs to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but depending on what MDE says to them. Existing manufacturers cannot exceed what they're putting out in 2023. And cement manufacturers will be treated as a new source where they will have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That bill is currently in the Senate. there's been some amendments that we worked with the cement manufacturers on and that we are supportive of, and we are very hopeful the Senate will pass it. However, at the end, we will have action alerts. Your senator needs to know that this is a top priority bill. It's got unanimous support. There was no organized opposition to it. There is no it was a recommendation of the Maryland Commission on Climate Change, and it takes the all of society approach, which is part of the climate plan, and moves it forward. So we believe this is really important bill. Your senator needs to know it's a priority. We're racing not against racing on subject matter, but we're also racing against the clock. So this has to be a priority bill and get through. So those that's a big one. The next one is our famous data center bill, which we did not see coming. Just to refresh you, the governor put in a bill that allowed for the backup generators at data centers to be able to be exempted from what was called the CPCN process, for the Public Service Commission to take a deep dive into the emissions and function of the backup generators. Our position that we took in both the House and the Senate was we only supported the bill if 7 amendments were passed. We got 4 of the amendments, and we're appreciative of the leadership in both chambers or in the Senate chamber and with the administration for getting us 4. 2 of the amendments that we had put forward originally, we withdrew because they weren't relevant to the bill. The one amendment that we did not see eye to eye on at all was about reducing the climate impacts from the backup generators. They use diesel, produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So we changed our position to oppose the bill. The Senate passed it. It moved over to the House. We continued to oppose the bill and work with the House and hopefully try to get some amendments on. And I'm very pleased to say that we worked with the administration and Delegate Charkoudian to develop an amendment that, if passed, would move Maryland LCV to a neutral. We will not support the bill. We don't believe it's a good bill and at the right time. However, with this amendment, we would stop working against it and just let the legislature determine what the future of it is. The amendment is to take the corporate income tax that data centers will pay and take 15% of the amount that will be deposited in the general fund and put it over for greenhouse gas reduction practices for climate change impact programs. So this would be an annual allocation based on the number of data centers that are built, and it would be ongoing. So if you think back to originally, we were talking about needing a funding source for greenhouse gas reduction. This starts that process, and we don't know exactly how much revenue this would produce, because we don't know how many data centers will be built, but it is a great step forward. So if that amendment passes, the organization changes our position to neutral. So we've gone on record with that, and I wanted to give you guys the update. So those are the 3 bills I wanted to discuss. And now let me turn to Kristen Harbison, and she's going to jump on and hi, Kristen,
Hi.
and talk to us about the Brighter Tomorrow Act. Remind us again what it does and the status of it, and what our folks that are listening need to do to help us.
Absolutely. This is a great bill. We love this bill. It's a bill that pulls from recommendations from a task force that was set up last year through legislation that we supported about how we incentivize our solar industry. How do we get it to? We're falling very short of our goals of getting our solar goals. We have set these ambitious goals. We're not meeting those targets. How can we incentivize especially smaller projects, the ones on rooftops, the ones on parking canopies, the ones on brownfields, the small projects and get those those projects jump started. And so it's a series of incentives so that takes a holistic look at those, again, those smaller projects, and it's less than 5 megawatts. So, we talk about small projects, that's 5 megawatts is still, 40 to 50 acres. So, but it's not the hundreds and hundreds of acres that the utility scale projects are. So these are the ones that are harder to finance. And so how this helps to even the playing field to get those projects to go. So it's a great bill, and I would say that it's ongoing. There's been a lot of negotiation. It did not what we call make crossover, because they were still working out some of the final details around one of the incentives. But those details have all been hammered out. I think everybody's on the same page and it's ready to move. There will be a brighter tomorrow on Monday. In the Senate committee is scheduled to vote on it on Monday. So in terms of what we need to get people done. So it needs to get through the committee. It needs to get through the second reader and the third reader in the Senate. It will need to then be pulled out of the rules committee in the House, which is a whole other step for bills that don't make crossover. And then it will have to go through the whole process in the House. So we need you to right now be contacting your senators to tell them to please, please, please support this bill, move it quickly so that we can then turn to the House and make sure it goes through all the processes there.
Great. Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks.
And next up will be Rebecca. And Rebecca's going to talk to us about two bills that are priorities for us. One is the Empower Reform Bill, and the other is the Climate Education Week. So let's take Empower first, Rebecca. Give us the sense of what the bill does and the status and what our folks listening can do to help.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate your time at this really busy and important time of year of session. So and your action is definitely needed on this one. So Empower Reform, what the bill does is, importantly for us, it takes a recommendation from the Climate Pollution Reduction Plan and updates our Empower program, which is a really successful energy efficiency program that everyone in the state can access, but also that for low-income households in Maryland, you can go the part of Empower that's typically run through the utilities for Marylanders for low-income households is actually run through the Department of Housing and Community Development, because there's free and other incentives for low-income households to upgrade energy efficiency in their homes. It's a great energy efficiency program that's had a lot of success in the state. So it's going to keep doing that. And the way we measure the program will change so that it can align with our greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals instead of just measuring it through energy savings. So we can actually tell how much we're saving greenhouse gas emissions. And it will include incentives for switching to electric appliances. So right now there's only incentives for switching to more efficient gas appliances. And if the bill passes, people who participate in Empower will actually have incentives to switch to electric appliances. The bill does a couple different other things, how we pay for the program, and which improves how we're going to pay for it in the long term, and a couple other things on specific outreach to low income and non-native English speakers. So it has a lot in there, but those are the key points. And this one was introduced as HB 864. So it just has a House bill number, already passed all the way through the House ahead of crossover. And as of yesterday, late in the day, passed out of the EEE committee in the Senate. So it is on a good trajectory, but your senators need to hear from you to get it off the floor. And there are differences. The Senate changed the bill a little bit. So it is going to have to go back to the House and either get accepted or they're going to reject the changes and it'll go to conference. So keep the pressure up on this one. Check out our action alert. Let your senators know, yes, when it gets to them on the floor, and keep it up in the House that this bill needs to pass when it gets back over to them.
Awesome. This is a great bill. So we're really, really hoping it passes. And then talk to us briefly about the Education Week, Climate Education Week.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a unanimous recommendation out of the Maryland Commission on Climate Change and provides a really great opportunity to kick off Earth Month by declaring the first week of April Maryland Climate Education Week. This one was, in particular, pretty fun to testify on because the Health and Government Operations Committee in the House actually passed it out of committee the same day it was heard. So thank you, HGO, for that. And it's, again, also only has a House number, so it's HB 993. And it passed out of the House. It had a good hearing in the Senate earlier this week, last week, this week. So this week, very good. Yesterday, in fact. Funny how time works this time of year. But it had a good hearing in the Senate. So the Senate Triple E committee needs to hear from you that this is a great bill. Declares the first week in April Maryland Climate Education Week. Why the first week, you might ask? Well, great kickoff to Earth Month. And it actually aligns with Worldwide Climate Justice Education Week. So it's a really intentional choice that first week of April. And actually, the Maryland Commission on Climate Change has been actually just this year is going to host the second annual climate teach-in on the first week of April. So it'll build momentum and help teachers plan for all of the great opportunities that can happen that first week of April. So again, Triple E right now really needs to hear from you in the Senate to get it out of committee, get it on a vote list, get it to the floor. Let's declare the first week of April Maryland Climate Education Week.
All right. Thank you, Rebecca. And Marissa Olszewski is going to jump on and talk to us about the bill called Whole Watershed Act.
Hi, Kim. Yes, let's talk about the whole watershed. All right, so we've talked about this here before, but just recap for those who haven't caught up on this one. We really appreciate this bill. Senator Sarah Elfreth brought it in the Senate and Delegate Love in the House. And it's a response to the CSER report. So this was the comprehensive evaluation of system response there on the screen, a report out of the Chesapeake Bay program. Many scientists worked on this report, and it included some policy recommendations. And so our legislators, Elfreth and Love, put those policy recommendations together into this piece of legislation. And what the bill will do is develop a pilot program in 5 watersheds. And in responding to that report, the pilot program will target the efforts put into restoration in those watersheds, moving them upstream into the shallow waters, and also moving them also upland, right? So we're not talking about stream restoration here. We're talking about watershed restoration on the full scale, and really trying to find all of those opportunities for co-benefits when we're both improving communities and habitat and also improving water quality in the process. So the bill will target the 5 watersheds, will create a state management team to make this more effective and efficient, and provide those measurable co-benefits.
And what I got a question today, Marissa, and I didn't know the answer. So have the 5 watersheds been selected, or is that part of the process in the bill?
The 5 watersheds are not pre-selected. We're talking about 8-digit watersheds. There are many of those across the state of Maryland. What has been written into the bill is that at least 2 of the watersheds have to include overburdened and underserved communities that will benefit from the process. And one has to be in a agricultural dominated area, one in a suburban dominated area, and one in a urban dominated area, which will really get us to find, because this is a pilot program, we want to learn things from it too. So it will allow the opportunity to learn what works in these different sort of geophysical areas.
Great. And give us a sense of the status of this and what we need from folks listening.
Yes. So the Senate bill has passed all the way to 3rd reader in the House. But it's not the same as what was passed in the Senate. So we are expecting this bill to end up in conference committee. And the couple of things that are getting worked out between the two, the differences in the bill, are fairly significant. The House stripped out everything in the bill beyond the pilot program that I just talked about. And a couple of things that were in the bill as well that I think are still important, and we should really be encouraging them to put back in. The one would be the licensing board. So this would be a licensing board for restoration professionals who work in things like stream restoration. And it would mirror exactly what we already have for our marine contractors, but it would bring that to stream restoration on the whole. And that's something we haven't had before and would really help to professionalize the industry and also create guardrails. And speaking of guardrails, the other part of the bill was something that had been affectionately referred to as the Hester Amendment, but it was essentially these guardrails for stream restoration practices in particular that would help to remove all of the negative things that we've seen when they're done wrong or done poorly, and help to put guardrails around that so that we're not having those problems. Those things got taken out on the House side. The Senate kept them in when they passed it. So hopefully in conference committee, they can work that out. But if people want to contact their senators in particular, or their House leadership, that would be the places to ask for this conference committee to get this bill moving, get it through, and really do encourage that licensing board to still be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Really hoping this bill passes as well. So that is our quick review of kind of the priority bills. There's lots of other bills that we're tracking and working on, but we wanted to bring these to your attention because if you heard a common theme here, it is talk to your senator about manufacturing exemption bill. Talk to your senator about the Brighter Tomorrow Act. Talk to your senator about education, Climate Education Week. Talk to your senator about Empower, and talk to both the House and the Senate about the whole Watershed Act. We are up against the time frame, and things start dropping off because they just run out of time for it. So please focus on the Senate and making sure that your voice is heard on the importance of these bills. Let me invite Kristen and Rebecca to join Marissa and I, and why don't we drop this slide out? I know some people are having trouble seeing. Yeah, there we go. So, okay, yes, Wendy, we'll get the links in the chat on how to contact legislators and whatnot. And if you don't have what you need, get a hold of us here at our offices, and we'll help you. So I wanted to talk to the team here about 2025. We're coming up. We know how bills are going to end here. And I know we're not going to predict what bills are coming back next year. But I do want to talk a little bit and hear from you, each of you, about lessons learned, how we might approach 2025 a little differently if you're feeling optimistic or worried about next year, and just look into the crystal ball and share with folks that are joining us today a little bit about what the next year could look like for us. And I think I'll start with Kristen.
So I'm always optimistic. I'm always optimistic about next year. Next year's session is always going to be the best one yet. And I think that one of the things in terms of Brighter Tomorrow and the solar is that this is a long process, and there are a lot of different parts to it, and there are a lot of things that we need to look at. This is a step. Brighter Tomorrow, if it passes, and again, we don't actually know how everything is going to pass because we need your help to make sure it gets to the resolution we need it to. But the outlook is good. That we expect a brighter tomorrow. But in that brighter tomorrow, how are we going to look at the other issues that are related to solar? This is a bridge program. This is a short-term solution. We need to be looking at our broader solar market and whether it's working the way we want it to, and to take a step back and look at, I still think we need to talk about land use, and we need to talk about siting. And there are a lot of different pieces about how this is going to work and how we as a state can reach all of our goals. We're a very little state with very big goals, and how can they all work together? So yeah, that's, I think, sort of where we're going.
So you feel optimistic about the renewable energies sources in Maryland?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
Good. All right. Rebecca, let me get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And I was hoping someone else go first because I always learn so much from my colleagues. So it's just a real, one of the things I learned this session is how important your team is, and just I so enjoy working with everyone, at Maryland LCV, everyone who tunes in every week for these. We can't do it. We can't do it without you. And I think that's just the level of engagement and the level of support for these bills as legislators consider thousands of issues every session in 90 days. If we think our brains are full, and just the things we work on, their brains are being, they're being inundated with requests and things. So I know now more than ever, we can't do it without you. So I definitely appreciate that. And then I think the other thing is engagement early and often. Session may start the January 10th this year, similar next year. That start date isn't going to change, but that's not your first touch on an issue. That's not your first touch for the legislator. That's not for the communities who are going to be supporting the legislation, and that policy is a really important lever for change, systemic change. But that starts now for things that have to pass next year, that have to pass the year after. So early engagement often, so that we can be prepared for the unexpected, and build coalition and partnership that gets the work done. So thank you to everyone who keeps tuning into these and supporting us as we do this important work and engage early and often.
And Marissa, what kind of lessons learned for 2025 do you have?
Well, building on what Rebecca just said, one of the things that I've talked to many colleagues about this session is that we're reminded every session that legislators also are asked to be experts on everything that comes in front of them, and they're not. And so there's a lot of opportunity outside of those session dates to engage with legislators as well, and to provide them with that broader context and background and information that can help them to better understand these issues that we bring to them in the 90-day session. And that's been something that I've been reminded of, especially talking about water issues, because we take for granted that everyone in Maryland and the Chesapeake Bay region appreciates the Chesapeake Bay and wants to do what's best for it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they understand how to do what's best for it. So taking time in the off session to meet with legislators and to bring them out into the field and to show them sort of the background and context would be important.
Well, thank you all. And I also want to thank the folks behind the scenes on these Friday Digests. Danny Lipinski and Jason All are the ones that are doing the magic. And you have no idea how much they work to prepare us to be ready to launch every Friday at noon. And they've done a beautiful job. So their faces are not here, but their hearts and souls are here. So thank you, Danny and Jason, for helping us out with that. Let me hit, we have one question that keeps coming up, and I want to just hit it, and that's the bridge, collapsing of the bridge and the implications on the environment and specifically offshore wind. Believe us, we're deeply saddened by this experience. And Marissa lives near the bridge, and she and I had a chance to talk today just about the sense of loss for the community, or the people that live there, and really for the whole state. So first and foremost, let's acknowledge that. In terms of environmental assessments, we are letting the state take the lead on emergency responses, and including MDE and the toxic chemicals that may be coming out. So staying definitely whatever they need and how they need it, we're providing support as we can there. The implications on the offshore wind, again, we're going to have to see how this rolls out. However, TradePoint Atlantic is the hub for U.S. Wind's manufacturing of blades and towers and all that. And they are still having access to the shipping channels in the Bay and still can get ships in and out. So our hope is that that industry will have minimal impact versus some of the other industries that might have a larger impact. So we're feeling hopeful about that. We've been in touch with the governor's office as well, the port workers and the shoremen and all of them. We're obviously very supportive of anything we can do, that the administration and the legislators can do to support them. So I don't have great answers yet because it's a few days in, But we are staying in touch with all the key players for sure on this, and we'll keep you posted. So another quick half hour with Maryland LCV. Let me also express my deep gratitude to each of you who have been wonderful partners, and we look forward to working with you. As everybody has said, this is a year-round thing, and the really important work is actually off session. So we'll be in touch with you about how to engage with that. For those of you that practice, happy Easter. For those of you that don't, enjoy your weekend, and I hope it's full of sunshine and greatness. And thank you again. We'll see you soon.